Hi, this is Jon Burcaw, and I am reading my book, The Sidecar Kings. Today, chapters 2 and 3. Chapter 2. A few hours' ride to the north, another kind of Sidecar King's court was convening in the parking lot of Big's Harley-Davidson in Pleasantville. Big Bear, a giant of a man with a big heart and even bigger smile, sat in his office. Since he owned the place and his home was on the premises as well, he was always the first to show up for ride gatherings. Big's shop was one of those places that drew people from all over. Big had nice bikes and great service, but it was the people, Big's family, his wife and kids, and the staff at the shop that made the business a destination. He started the business back in '67 with his father and mother. At the time, Big and his dad, affectionately called Pappy by everyone, worked at a local factory making auto parts. Big worked first shift, Pappy worked second. When one was at the factory, the other worked at the motorcycle shop. Big's mom, known to all as Nana, and still is, was the only full-time employee back then. She worked at this shop all day while her husband and son continued working their day jobs and took turns at the shop. The hard-working family began to see business increase steadily over the next few years, and in time, the men eventually quit their day jobs as the shop began to sustain them. Bear married, and later his wife joined him at the shop too. 2 daughters followed later still. It was a real, true family business that focused on others first. It is that simple notion that made them one of the most successful businesses in the area, and it still is. There was one other thing that made this place different than all other businesses anywhere nearby. Every minute that wasn't used to sell or service motorcycles was used to plan and take part in events intended to raise money for the MDA. The business was the family, and the family was the business. That's why today was one of Bear's favorite days of the summer. He was about to take part in 2 of the things he loved the most: ride motorcycles with his friends and give MDA campers rides. He had been arranging these rides for the last 20 years. One visit to a camp all those years ago was all it took for the family to get hooked. As he sipped his morning coffee, he pulled a very time-worn, curled slip of paper from his shirt pocket and read through the list of riders' names who usually rode the ride. There's the slip. Bear smiled as he read through the names. For most riders, he had written down only the nicknames. To anyone else, the list was just a group of unlikely words. But to him, each name was a story. Some of the stories brief, others quite colorful. Some of the names were as old as the curled up piece of paper they were written on. As he read through them for the 1,000th time, he could hear his friends' bikes coming into the parking lot. Bear kept the list, not so much to remember who was riding, but as a reminder of how lucky he was to have such great friends. Goose, an auto mechanic by trade, was riding through a nearby town one day when a flock of geese decided to cross the road in front of him. After his bike was stopped, he honked the horn to get the geese moving. No one was quite sure what happened next. The geese either tried to make him their leader or they attacked. The local police had to be summoned to clear the road. Goose was ticketed for disturbing the peace and became forever known as the Goose Man. To make sure it stuck, Goose had his name tattooed on his left shoulder, just above 3 geese flying in formation. He would be bringing a sidecar rig with him today. While he enjoyed all group rides, he especially enjoyed this one because of how much it meant to the kids at the camp. John Deere, or JD for short, earned his name when he was riding with a group of other riders on a country road that meandered through a cornfield, which is real common in these parts. The road the group was riding on turned, but JD apparently was paying attention to something else, and he went straight into the corn. He rode through the corn until he reached the field access road and returned to his friends a short time later, fortunately unharmed. One of the riders commented on his bike CB radio, "Hey, he looks like a John Deere tractor coming out of there." And another nickname was born. With snow-white hair and a beard, JD could pass for a thin Santa Claus, the one that hadn't eaten enough for Christmas yet. A self-employed wood furniture maker, JD turned hardwood lumber into beautiful, long-lasting chairs, tables, and beds. He had been on all the rides. The first one changed him, just like it did for Bear and his family, and JD returned for the ride every year since. He too would be bringing a hack or sidecar rig along with him. His machine was special. It was built especially for giving disabled children rides. With its sleek, jet black fighter cockpit styling, his machine turned many heads while riding down the road. Spud Muffin, or Spud for short, was sitting in a restaurant with friends when he ordered French fries and pierogies with his order. The riders who were with him noted his double order of potatoes and then hung the nickname on him. Spud was a manager of a small custom circuit board shop. Sporting slicked back black hair, a goatee, and piercing blue eyes, Spud was never far from a laugh. He brought a two-wheeler on this ride. Froggy was a little simpler. His real name was Kermit. He had to be called Froggy. With shoulder-length white hair and a very lengthy beard, sometimes held in check by rubber bands, Froggy would light up the day with his smile. His rig was green, with black spots added for comical good measure. The word "rib bit" was inscribed on his personalized license plate. He rode his nickname to its logical extreme. Pop-Up Jack was a grandfather, and that's what his grandkids called him, and then so did everyone else. Jack had taken part in the ride the last couple of years. He enjoyed the riding so much. He enjoyed the riding as much as being with the kids. He particularly enjoyed helping the campers into the sidecars. Jack's grandson had been a camper, so he knew about the life of a child in a wheelchair better than most riders. Jack was a retired foundry manager who liked to cut grass, and he liked to build and fix things. He was truly a jack of all trades. Jack was on two wheels this morning. Stretch was close to 7 feet tall. His height conjured his nickname. His wife, Mel, was just a dash under 5 feet tall. They were easy to spot because of the huge difference in height. And they were always together in their purple sidecar rig. A retired utility lineman, Stretch loved to take pictures. He had huge collections of pictures from previous rides. He believed every camper should have a picture of themselves to remember this special day. Armed with all kinds of photographic equipment, he would be the event photographer for the day. Mel was a retired school nurse who had a great patience for all children. She was also an excellent cook. Whenever Big's family put on a fundraising event at the shop, Mel was always cooking and serving something to the patrons. She and Stretch always selflessly gave their time. 7 was a shop employee and a motorcycle drag racer. The number was emblazoned on his racing bike, and it became his nickname. Even though he took part in a noisy, violently fast sport, 7 was the quietest of all the riders. While he never really mentioned why he decided to do this ride, it was clear he enjoyed being with his friends and the kids as well. 7 preferred 2 wheels to 3. Smiley loved to ride, and riding made him smile. Whether it was a sunny, raining, or freezing cold, this rider smiled through it all. One rainy October day a few years back, Smiley decided to visit his brother, who lived 500 miles away. Most riders would have postponed or canceled the trip because of the very poor weather conditions that day. But he decided to go in the face of the storm and rode through 10 hours of downpours to put a smile on his brother's face on his 40th birthday. Afterward, he had learned that 2 tropical storms came together over the region he was riding through that miserable day. He realized then how lucky he was to have remained upright for the entire trip. That's the truth. Arizona Mike wanted everyone to know where he was from, so his home state was also his name. He was a long-haul truck driver and frequently traveled back and forth across the country. Mike enjoyed telling stories. He particularly enjoyed embellishing the truth, stretching it sometimes to questionable extremes. One of his questionable stories involved the time when a black bear had somehow worked its way into a trailer filled with chocolate bars he was hauling. He claimed he was sleeping in the sleeper cab of the truck, parked in a rest area along a remote part of the interstate highway. He awoke to the sounds of what he thought was someone with a bad bellyache. He cautiously left his rig with his trusty baseball bat for protection. He said he walked to the back of the trailer and discovered the bear lying in a big pile of partially eaten chocolate bars. The bear appeared to be holding its stomach, Mike said. One of the rear trailer doors was open, and the chocolate bar boxes the bear was able to remove from the back of the trailer were all over the ground. The bear was lying amidst the pile. Mike claimed he had frightened the bear away, but not before several hundred pounds of chocolate had disappeared. The only part of this story that anyone can verify was that there was missing chocolate. He never did say how the bear was able to open the locked trailer door. Mike stopped hauling chocolate after that run. Unlike chocolate, his sidecar rig was sparkling pearly white color. The story of Load, and Lil Load, was known only to Bear and these 2 riders. Bear also had another nickname. He was also known as Big Load. Those names came back with the guys after they rode together through the Mojave Desert. Each of these 3 had their own version of how the names were bestowed. Nobody but the 3 Loads know the truth, the origin of these names, and they like it that way. Bear's daughters, Sherry and Denise, were expert riders and would be riding the remaining hacks on the ride that day. In all, 20 riders met to get ready for the ride. Men and women from all walks of life got together to share a common interest. They all rode Harley-Davidsons. They all loved to ride, and today they couldn't wait to get to their destination. There were 7 sidecar rigs making the run. These bikes were special. There was magic in each one. Whenever anyone rode in a sidecar, 2 things happened. They didn't want to stop riding when the ride was over, and they all had crazy smiles that just stuck. There was no other experience like it in the world. Of the 7 rigs, 6 of them were similar, only differing in color. The 7th sidecar was JD's Road King. The top half of the fiberglass nose was on a hinge that made it easy for anyone to get in and out. Today that would come in real handy. The 7 sidecar rings were accompanied by 10 more bikes along for the ride. These 2-wheeled riders went along to get the kids in and out, to help get the kids in and out of the sidecars. They also helped to increase the cool factor. More bikes meant a bigger, louder bang on arrival. The riders were excited to get on the road and begin a very special day of riding. Before they left, there was a riders' meeting, the time when they all got together and talked about safety. Big Bear had come out of his office and asked Goose to whistle as loudly as he could to get everyone's attention. Goose could whistle as loud as anyone. Goose puckered his lips and let rip a shrill, conversation-stopping whistle. Jack wasn't prepared for the volume of the whistle, and he dropped his helmet, attempting to cover his ears. "Yo, Goosey, send up a warning the next time you do that." "Hey, Jack, sorry about that. Gotta admit, though, it was pretty funny to watch you jump," said Goose. After some laughter, Bear took over. "All right," Bear said, "listen up. The sidecars will settle in behind me and JD. The rest of you fall in behind them." Big Bear was a long-time rider, and the group always knew to listen to him. "Now, I don't want to scare you, but it's pretty good bet we're going to hit some rain before we're done. If you don't want to get wet, either leave now or have your rain gear handy." He paused to see if anyone was going to chicken out, and just like every other time, nobody did. "Okay then, let's mount up and have some fun." Helmets were cinched down tight, starter buttons were stabbed, and quickly each bike roared to life. The unmistakable rumble of a gang of Harleys filled the country air. The string of bikes hung there for a moment to take in the sight and sound. Then off they went down the road in a flourish of rolling thunder. No one could have imagined how adventurous this trip was going to get. Chapter 3. Tie-dye shirt day. All the boys finally got situated in their chairs and prepared to start the day. Tuesday had been tie-dye t-shirt day, and the boys had made similar shirts with the words Sidecar Kings emblazoned across the front. Today it was a club rule. Everyone in the gang wore the Kings t-shirts. They all looked like they had been made the same way except for Ethan's. He had a mishap with some green dye and ended up getting more dye on himself than his shirt. Dave smiled at Ethan's still green hands. "Ethan, you gonna eat breakfast with those green hands?" "Let me change that bandage. That looks disgusting." "Aw, Dave, you sound like my mom," Ethan replied. "I want to try to set a world record for wearing a bandage on my thumb the longest." "Good luck with that, kid." "I thought the shirts were going to be orange and black," Dave said. "How come your shirt and hands are green?" "Because I thought the green dye was black," Ethan responded sheepishly. "Somebody must have changed the colors before I dipped my shirt." "Who dipped before you?" Dave asked. "We all sort of dipped at the same time. I'm telling you, the color got changed." Connor and Eddie and Sean giggled over the other side of the room. Dave glared at them and instantly knew Ethan had been punked by the boys. "No worries, E-Man," Dave reassured. "You guys all have the Sidecar King logo you came up with. You look cooler than cool, no matter the color. For Ethan, that's all that mattered." As the boys got ready to leave for breakfast, Dave had to get a picture of the gang as they looked right then. Sometimes some moments need to be frozen. This was one. Just like a real club, these kids all had stories to tell. Today, this moment, this picture would tell a 1,000-word story. The boys all huddled together as close as their wheelchairs would allow, and Dave clicked away. "Come on, Dave, we're hungry," Eddie complained. "All right, boys, just a couple more." "Excellent, let's go eat." The boys headed outside and immediately felt the sweltering heat and humidity. "Boy, is it ever hot already," Ethan groaned. Connor chirped, "Pool's gonna feel great today." The covered front porch of Cabin 22 was equipped with a ramp that led the boys to the road that passed all the other similarly equipped cabins. On the other side of the road was the sidewalk that led away to the parking lots and the entrance to the camp. Cabin 22 could see all the way to the main highway. TJ glimpsed out the entrance and asked no one in particular, "Is that where they come in?" Mischievous Connor, sensing a chance to have some fun with his young friend, pounced and quickly offered, "Sure is, but they'll be coming out of the sky, riding on bolts of lightning, TJ." Dave watched as TJ's eyes gazed into the sky. He knew TJ bought Connor's little fib and responded quickly, "TJ, Connor's just telling stories, buddy. They'll be coming right up in the entrance, right where you first looked. We'll be here waiting for them when they come." This ends the reading of Chapter 2 and Chapter 3.